based on some gut instinct, that can lead to bias, but over-reliance on models can lead to generic soulless experiences. And also, don't forget, algorithms are built by human beings, so implicit within that are bias, prejudices.
Okay, so as you know, the customer journey today is messy, right? Because they've got so many options of like where to get their goods. You can go on your phone, you can go on your desktop, laptop, tablet, whatever you want. So from your time leading digital and data at Pearson and Take-Two Interactive, what have you learned about connecting these dots and actually building loyalty across disciplines?
So one of the ways in which you try and connect the dots are by using technologies or solutions like customer data platforms. And whether that's mParticle or Rocked, it's BlueConic. Salesforce have their own. That's really where you take discrete data sets that represent mirrors of your customers' activity across all of these different touch points, and you have to figure out how to unify them. That's it's pretty it's a gnarly work to have to do that. You've got PII, which is obfuscated. You can't necessarily table match, so you've got to take unstructured data and structure it. So that takes a lot of data engineering, data governance work. It's not. It's just one of those must-have things, like cleaning your pipes at home. It's got to be done in order to keep things flowing. But once you've done that, you can then get a unified view of that customer, and you should then be able to track them. The problem is that people's behavior is not linear. They jump from apps to browsers to to retail environments, and so you've got to constantly be monitoring it and making sure again that your data is not drifting, and that identity becomes paramount then. And so once you have that in place, it goes back to very basic marketing first principles. And you're looking at the marketing funnel, you're looking at a customer journey from brand awareness through to consideration, engagement, and conversion. And at each one of those points, for things like customer acquisition, getting them in the gate, we were building media mix modeling marketing models so that we could optimize our marketing spend, improve the ROI, reduce the customer acquisition cost. Once we got them in the door, it was a question of how do you increase ARPU? What are the levers to drive revenue across all the different products and service offerings? And then after that is how do you extend their lifetime, maximize loyalty? And so each one of those areas in the funnel or on the journey have their own set of metrics. And it's important you don't just lean on vanity metrics, but ones that really convert into commercial value. When this is done correctly, what you see is the data helps reveal the why of a customer's action, not just the what happened. Because customers can be emotional, they can be irrational, they can be illogical. Having an insight into what prompted a particular behavior then gives you essentially a window on how to solve it.
So all of that makes sense. But let's say you're a brand that's still operating in silos, right? Is it data, org structure, or just choosing one customer moment to fix that?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think it's incumbent upon companies to really fix it from top to bottom. But I understand that can be something that is costly and takes a while. So what you should do while you are focusing on fortifying your platforms, your people, and your processes involved in this is to work on things that are immediately a problem, right? So focus on something that's solvable today, and that could be things like a reduction of churn or cart abandonment, reduction of spend on certain channels. And so I would say start with some early wins where you can prove the value of this, and you can essentially use it to experiment with this scientific approach. Use that almost as a training ground for teams that are not necessarily used to that culturally. Another way of looking at it is to really put yourself in the shoes of the customer, understand what their wants, needs, desires, problems are. So create a shared view of that customer. Again, CDP doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be aligned to start with. And I'd say organize small cross-functional squads that are built around solving customer problems, not necessarily with the traditional department. And that way you really are addressing what the customer needs on that journey. So you don't need perfect data to make progress. You just need the right moment and the ability to act on it.
Right, and it sounds like just from what you were saying too, it's identifying a few problems, start small scale with that, just get some immediate results, get people comfortable with it, get cross alignment across different teams, and then you can build on that knowledge, expertise, and experience using it to deliver better results.
Absolutely.
So you teach this kind of material at NYU today, right? Are we finally at a point where predictive models can replace gut instinct in certain circumstances? Or does it have to really be still a blend of that with this new technology?
Yes, I think they need to coexist right now. I don't think you're ever going to see a replacement of a marketer. You're just going to have more efficient marketers. I used to say at work that every model is wrong. every model is wrong. The question is, how wrong is it, right? There's always going to be an issue of inaccuracy, and all these models, whether the MMM models or the large language models, they're all probabilistic models. So there will be some error margin on that. Your job is to try and reduce that. That's where human instinct, experience, relationships, and judgment come in. That right now is not being driven by machines. It's being driven by human beings. And the other thing is, when you're looking at just the cold hard numbers, data can't always tell you, it could tell you who's likely to buy something. It doesn't necessarily tell you why. So it's important to balance quantitative analysis with qualitative analysis, primary research with secondary research, first-party data with third-party data, and really try and get a holistic view of the customer. And I think some of the best work really happens when you see this overlap between creative instinct and data, and that confidence that the decisions you're making is backed by both of those. So over-reliance on sort of gut instinct, that can lead to bias, but over-reliance on models can lead to generic soulless experiences. And also, don't forget, algorithms are built by human beings, so implicit within that are bias, prejudices, etc. So in the final analysis, it's not man versus machine, it's man with machine, or humankind with machine, salesperson with machine. That's what will lead to success.
So practically speaking then, I know there's a lot to cover with that, but how should a marketing team use those predictions? Where do you plug them in first? It's like a lot of different ways you can go about it, but should it be, for example, like media spend or pricing? What are some of those practical takeaways for people so it doesn't overwhelm them?
Well, I think you can reduce it to a few basic value levers, right? And so I typically tend to think of 5. There's, does this help us drive revenue? Does it help us contain costs? Not necessarily cut them, but contain them or optimize them. Does it improve operational efficiency? Does it allow for acceleration of product innovation? Or does it deal with risk and compliance and governance? One of those 5 basically have to be fulfilled. While companies should, of course, be thinking about margin, very often they're thinking about top line to start with. So in this instance, it's using models for sales teams, et cetera. Some of the metrics you'd look to try and optimize are things like abandoned cart recovery, predicting churn after first purchase, personalized offers instead of just blanket discounts, that sort of thing. Those are a few of the metrics one can try and solve towards. And as we said before, I think if you can show quick ROI, you'll get buy-in from the team, you'll get buy-in from the CFO and leadership, and then that really gives you license to expand into broader spend on optimization, inventory, loyalty programs, and that's really where you see the benefit of all this data and these machine learning models. So I heard someone say they use this rule of thumb in their company, is that if a human makes the same decisions 500 times a day, then it's incumbent upon us to automate that workflow and optimize it and remove the human heavy lifting of it, free that person up to do more value-added work.
No, there's some really good points that you make there. And I think you just said it well when it says it's humans with machines. And I think it's all of us in many industries, especially in the technology industry, to get familiar with more of the AI software out there. And firstly, learning how to use that better. But second of all, it's taking over tasks to kind of help create efficiencies for things that are more manual and repetitive. And actually the strategic element still needs to come from human beings, right? Because that kind of creativity is something that helps you make that stand in the market. So in order to do that, you can't just purely rely on machines. They can certainly give you ideas, but people still value uniqueness, creativity that really talks to them at a particular period of time.
Yeah.
So Jamin, once again, thank you for all this great information. This has been awesome. And thanks for breaking it down so clearly. If there's one takeaway, I think, for brands that are listening today, it's this. Like Jamin mentioned, the one who wins today aren't the ones who are just using dashboards, because this can lead to information overload and indecision, especially when you use it across multiple apps. They're the ones who turn signals into actionable intelligence. And the best brands today are really the ones that are moving from descriptive, like what happened in the past, to predictive, what will happen, to prescriptive, what we should do now. With digital shelf intelligence and customer level intelligence, eClerx helps make that change and that jump. This is part of our Market Intelligence Suite, an AI-powered intelligence solutions that reveals your holistic digital market landscape and proactively turns insights into market growth strategies. And you can find out more about this by visiting eClerx.com. Thanks again for joining and for everyone listening in this session today. And don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you at the next one.